Welcome back, everyone. Glad you can make it here today. It's going to be a fun episode on, do you need to be in ketosis in order to burn fat? That's a question that I get all of the time, and I'm sure if you're a health practitioner out there as well, maybe an integrative health practitioner, you may get this as well. Well, this show is dedicated to all of the health practitioners we have listening, but also everyone out there in the general public that has this question. I keep hearing about this keto diet. Do I need to be in ketosis in order to burn body fat? And I'll tell you right now, the keto diet, beyond, I would say any of the health benefits that you can get from it, and there are, again, we've talked about this in the past, but it's probably the greatest marketing diet plan that has ever come into existence. For marketers, they love the keto diet because there's all sorts of nuances and different things you could talk about and twisting the data in order to be like, hey, this is the best thing ever and everybody should follow it everywhere in the world. And I've done many podcasts sharing with you why that may not be the best thing for everyone. I will certainly talk about some of the downsides on a future show, but I've also talked about all the upsides as well, or certainly getting your body to at least burn more body fat, right? So I've talked about that. I'll link up the previous podcast today. So for all the people that love the keto diet, I'll give some of the benefits. All the people that despise the keto diet, well, I'll share that side as well, right? Side as well. So that will be at stephencabral.com/2175. Today, I have to just answer this question though. Do you need to be in ketosis in order to burn body fat? And so, one of the things that I share right in the title of the show is you do not. And anyone that says you need to be in order to become more fat adapted just is talking about surface level knowledge. And I'm not here to put anyone down, and I don't name any names. I don't call out any books or call out any, podcasts or whatever it might be. But I just want you to know, you probably have seen it over the past couple months and at least into this year. Many of the doctors out there, right, who wrote books on fat and all of that are starting to come back more towards the middle, as I said that they would, right? They're starting to say more of the things that we've been talking about on the Cabral concept for the past 6 years, that you're never going to get away from balance and creating a state of equilibrium in your body in the long run if you want to be healthy. So there's all sorts of benefits that these doctors have found because they're just getting into nutrition for the keto diet. And then they're like, oh, wow, well, this is going wrong. And this is going wrong. And I didn't know this because they got all sorts of anecdotal evidence from themselves and they wanted to share that with the world, right? And then they have a doctor in front of their name or whatever it might be. So it lends a lot of credence to them. But here's the thing, you have to be careful with that because, and again, I'm not calling out any doctors, I'm not calling out any practitioners. This is not in regard to any specific person in the entire universe. But you have to be careful because a medical degree does not confer nutrition knowledge. And you might say, well, that's unfair to say. It's not unfair to say. There are many medical doctors who did postdoctoral nutrition study. Fantastic. Now they know about nutrition, right? But you do not take nutrition classes. You might take one, that's it, in all 4 years to get your medical degree. Getting your medical degree, and I don't think there's any medical doctor that would disagree with this, you study all of the ecologies that I call it, or ologies, right? Oncology, kinesiology, physiology, pathology of disease, right? You study all of your ologies, so you know how the human body works. Great. You need that, right? You study chemistry, you study your biology. Good. All of that matters. But in your last 2 years, you're studying pharmaceuticals. And then after that, you might be concentrated in a type of surgery or general practice, whatever it may be, okay? As part of your residency. You're not studying nutrition. You're not studying healthy lifestyle. You're not studying exercise, right? You're not studying nutritional supplements. So let's just be fair for what we're talking about, okay? So we're talking about ketosis and you've gotten benefits from maybe being on a keto diet. I understand that, but you do not need to be in a state of ketosis to burn body fat. Not even close. That is not how the human body works. And here's why. I want to share with you just on a base level. When your body needs to burn body fats, it breaks down adipose tissue or fat cells, right? So it's breaking those down. It's sending them to the liver to be processed as fuel. And it's doing that in the presence of normal or low insulin levels, right? So hopefully blood sugar is at a normal level, typically between a 70 and a 90 if you're using a glucometer. And as needed, it will create ketones inside of the body through a process of ketosis, using those fatty acids in the liver and creating ketones for fuel. That fuel could be used by the body itself or the brain. Okay, that is, and I'll break down the process into more depth. I'm going to be doing a follow-up show of how to become more fat adapted, right? Because a lot of people are asking about that. And I'll go through the process of this ketosis-based process of essentially creating specific metabolites in your body, right? And that's very important that we do understand that at a deeper level. And the way that your body processes this is very simply, it's taking those fatty acids, right, through fatty acid oxidation, through lipolysis. It just means breaking your fat molecules apart, right? Send them to the liver with these fatty acids. The fatty acids are then creating ketones, and the ketone bodies are simply beta hydroxybutyrate, acetoacetate, and acetone. And then those are then being used by the body to create something called acetyl coenzyme A, which is being used to produce ATP inside the cells, which is adenosine triphosphate, and that gives the mitochondria produce energy from it, right? So that's how it works. You don't need to know how all of that works, but your ketones is just simply beta hydroxybutyrate. Most people just consider it that, right? BHB, but it's actually acetoacetate and acetone to a smaller degree. All of those then what? They're shuttled to the mitochondria. They help your body produce more energy through acetyl coenzyme A and other processes as well. So when you look at that, okay, that's how our body produces energy, right? So we're looking at it as energy substrate, but not necessarily just to lose weight. How are we losing weight? Well, we're actually losing weight by being in an energy deficit, right? We're in an energy deficit, so our body is asking our body to break down fatty acids in the first place. And I want to give you a really easy example. You can be in a state of ketosis, right, by putting exogenous ketones into your body. You might have seen supplements called exogenous ketones, right? So what are you doing? Well, you're putting those in your body. And if you were to test your ketone levels, you would say, oh, I'm in a state of ketosis. But that does not mean you are in a state of body fat burning at all. It has nothing to do with that, because you could be eating a energy surplus in your diet, not moving your body enough, and you can actually gain weight in a state of ketosis. And a lot of people overlook this, that all of a sudden, because you're in a ketosis, it means that you're more fat adapted. It doesn't. It just does not mean that whatsoever. Now it can. There is a correlation, because if insulin levels are down, right, and your glucose levels are normal, and your body has energy demands that you are not meeting at that moment from carbohydrates or glucose, and you're not in a sympathetic nervous system state, so a state of fight or flight, and your body is not automatically going through a process of glycolysis, right, to break down and use more stored liver glycogen or muscle glycogen, well, it's saying, okay, while we're in a state of more aerobic-based capacity, our body's more relaxed, we're going to break down adipose tissue, which is your fat cells, right, your fat stores. It's going to send those fatty acids to the liver, and it's going to create and create ketones from it, right? And we're going to use that then as energy. Okay, so that is the goal of people in ketosis, to do it naturally. But you're doing it naturally by balancing blood sugar levels, being in an energy deficit, which is then allowing you to lose weight and burn body fat. So again, if you put exogenous ketones into your body and you test positive to be in a state of ketosis, that does not automatically mean you are breaking down more body fat and you're burning more body fat. That's not what that means. If you're not using exogenous ketones, you've done an overnight fast, you see that your body is producing ketones, your blood sugar is normal between like a 70 and a 90 typically, then yes, you are producing your own natural ketones and you are most likely tapping into body fat, as long as you're not in a hyper stress state. So like that's the truth behind, will you burn fat in a state of ketosis, and do you need to be in a ketosis to burn fat as well? Because here's the opposite of that. If you are running an energy deficit and you're on a high carb diet, you can still lose weight. And there's thousands of studies that show people on high carb or moderate carbohydrate diets are still burning body fat and losing weight. On a keto-based diet, you're typically eating between 25 and 50 net carbs per day. Typically, everyone has it always less than 50 net carbs per day. So you might say, well, how do people lose weight on a higher carb diet Like literally there are 95-5 diets. There's 80-10-10 diets, which is 80% carbs, 10% fat, 10% protein. I'm not telling you to follow that. But what I am saying is there are lots of research studies on higher carbohydrate diets and people losing weight. They are clearly not in a state of ketosis, yet they are running an energy deficit, which means that their body is taking in less fuel than it takes for their body to use in a day. Right? So their body might use let's say the body uses 1,800 calories for a day with your lifestyle included, and you take in 1,400 calories a day. All right. Well, over the course of a week, or 2 weeks, you're probably going to lose a pound or so. Okay. So here's the thing though. This brings up then the other argument. Well, is weight loss just about calories in, calories out? And the answer is no. And I've done whole shows on that before, because inflammation, stress, gut function, toxicity, sleep, all of these factor in. And all of those factors create inflammation, water retention, inability to burn more body fat, lower thyroid, higher cortisol at night, estrogen dominance. All of these things prevent people from losing weight even when they go to 1,000 calories a day. And we know this because we run a clinical practice, which doesn't mean that we're better than anyone else. It just means that we see people in the real world outside of just lab research that shows, listen, when this person is in a greater state of stress, they drop their carbs too low, all of a sudden not all of a sudden, but over 4 to 6 weeks, they start to go lower functional thyroid, which means their TSH moves above a 2, right? And if you've never run your thyroid, I definitely recommend free T4, free T3, TPO antibodies, and T4. I also recommend running your cortisol levels. If stress is too high, you're not going to burn as much body fat. You'll also be more inflamed. You'll also retain more fluid. Same goes for estrogen dominance. All of those can be tested on a lab at, it's called the Stress Hormones Mood and Metabolism Lab. It's over at Equalife. You can find it at stephencabral.com/labs. That's what we use in our practice. We ship it all over the world. You're welcome to run it as well. Very simple, very straightforward. And again, you can also run that with a local naturopathic doctor or an integrative health practitioner level 2 as well. So that's it. I'm going to be doing a few more shows on this topic of low carb, but I wanted to share this with you here today and just reiterate that a keto-based diet is typically 70% or so fat or more. It is no more than 10%, or it shouldn't be, protein. And the reason is a lot of people, they're eating way too much meat on a keto-based diet. They're not actually in a state of ketosis. I've gone over this before. Meat, red meat, all of these things can easily be broken down and utilized as glucose and carbs in the body. There's a lot of science behind it. I've done that on previous shows. So the only way to really be in a state of ketosis is to be on a higher fat diet, lower net carb, which means you're just eating basically your low carb carbohydrates, no starches in there, and you're doing relatively low protein as well. So all of that, again, will keep you in a state of ketosis. I do not recommend being in a state of ketosis for more than 2 to 3 weeks. So I call it a cyclical base keto cycle. But I also recommend that you don't ever need to get there. If you go into that and fall into a state of ketosis on a functional medicine detox or on the first 3 weeks of our fat velocity weight loss system or any of these things, fine. It's not necessarily the goal. The goal is fat burning, however that happens. You do not need to be in a state of ketosis. Get into a state of ketosis if you want the other benefits, right? If you're going for the other benefits, then fine. That is something that you can do. But again, especially if you're female, after 3 to 6 weeks of being on a keto diet, which just is simply a low carb diet, doesn't have to be keto, but a low carb diet, there can be detrimental effects on your overall nervous system, your endocrine system, and your overall immune system. And that's called the neuroendoimmune system. I've talked about that in my book, The Rain Barrel Effect. And I've talked about it on previous podcasts as well that you can find at stephencabral.com/podcast. Hopefully this was helpful. I didn't want to get too deep into the science, but hopefully enough that it makes sense and it does and allows you not to have to say, oh, I need to do a keto diet in order to burn body fat. It's simply not true. You keep your body balanced, you keep your blood sugar levels normal, you're going to be able to tap into body fat. Add in some exercise there as well. All right. Thanks, everyone. Take care. I will leave the additional podcast and show notes at stephencabral.com/2175. Take care.